We're at Burr Udall's office, myself and Mick Rusing, and this is a continuation of the project that we started a little while ago to try to have a lasting record of the wisdom and humor of some of our most esteemed members. Burr, we don't have much of a rigid question answer.
Good, that's good. I don't have much answers. You did Tom, that's the important part.
Well, you're important. What, you were raised in St. John, were you?
Correct, yeah.
And how long did you live there?
17 years.
Till you graduated high school?
Graduated high school, went in the Army, and by the time I came back, Dad was on the court, and they sold the house and moved to Phoenix. So.
And your family consisted of your father, your mother?
3 girls, 3 boys, and I'm the 6th, I'm the last.
And among your brothers,
Stuart.
Morris and Stuart?
Stuart's 2 years older than Morris. And the first 2 are girls, and then Stuart, Morris, then a girl, and me. I'm a mistake. I was 4 years. Everybody's 2 years apart, and I'm 4 years. So.
What year did you go in the Army?
1946.
The war was over?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was smart enough. I talked, John, and tell me shut up. But
Please talk.
I was smart enough. My dad wanted me to go on a Mormon mission. The war was over. People were through shooting at each other, and the service wanted young people so the people who fought the war could come home. So they were very actively enlisted in 17, I was 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids. And I knew, that's what I thought with my dad about it, I was going to get the GI Bill. And I did. And it's what got me through school. So I went there, me and 2 other guys enlisted, went to Phoenix, went to El Paso for basic training, went home for Eloise, the girl older than me, got married. Then they sent me to Oakland and sent me to the Philippines, and then I came back through Seattle. So that was me in the Army.
You used to tell me when we were partners that you went in as a private and you came out as a private.
True. I went from private to PFC to private to PFC to private to, this man is not favorably recommended for the good conduct medal, but I get out with an honorable discharge.
Good.
And
And
my brief Army story, I was at a prison camp, American prisoners, 5 miles down the road were Japanese prisoners. And I was there, it was a station hospitals, and I was assigned as a clerk typist. I was there 5 days. They made it into a dispensary and made me a medic. So I was a medic the rest of the time I was in the Army. With no training.
where were you?
I was in a little town called Los Baños, about 90 miles south of Luzon. I mean south of Manila in Luzon.
Los Baños?
Los Baños.
Does it mean the same thing in the Philippines?
I have no idea, John. It's a good question. I don't, it's Tagalog. They don't speak Spanish. It's a different language, and I have no idea what it means.
Had you determined to be a lawyer when you first went to school?
No. No, when I went to school, I was going to be an engineer. And I flunked every course they had. And then I got involved in accounting, and I had the job at the infirmary. And so I had to get here 5 days before class started to get the place open and do certain things.
This is the infirmary at the University of Arizona?
Right, correct. And it doesn't exist anymore since they have, they have a student health center, but what we had doesn't exist anymore. And, I remember very distinctly being at home, getting ready to come, and Dad saying to me, "How do you like accounting?" And I said, "I hate it. I can't conceive of doing this the rest of my life." And he said, "Why don't you go to law school?" And I said, "Every damn Udall I know is a lawyer. I'm not going to law school." And I came here, and 3 days before class started, And at that time, it only required 3 years undergraduate work. I walked over to the old law school and I said to the dean secretary, I'd kind of like to go to law school. And she said, give me $35 and you're in. And that's how I got it.
So that would have been,
That would have been 52.
52?
Yeah.
Who were some of your classmates that we might know?
Well, Frank Gordon was in my class. Stan Goodfarb, who was a judge in Phoenix, was in my class. Roger Perry was a big shot lawyer. I think with Snell and Woomer for a long time. We had a gal named Liz Stover, who was a Superior Court judge. Judge Truman was in my class. Hathaway was in my class. Mo Allison was in my class. George Mariscal. We were a small class.
How big was it?
We started, they all usually start 120, which I think they still do. Our class was 70, and nobody could figure that out. Why? We were just, and they flunked half of us, and I think 37 of us graduated.
Did it take 3 years?
Took me 2.5. Because of the back surgery, I couldn't do physical work, so I went to summer school all the time.
You'd had the back surgery when you got back from the military?
Yeah. I got discharged in November and came to U of A in January, and then I had the back surgery that summer, 48, I'm sorry.
So you became licensed in the fall of 52?
No, I started in 52.
I'm sorry,
That's okay.
55.
I got licensed in 54.
54, because you only went 2.5 years.
I got out. It was stupid. They finally changed it, but they let you go for Christmas vacation for 2 weeks. You came back, went to class for a week, and then you had finals. Made no sense.
Right.
And I took the bar exam before I took finals. They let me do it. I don't know why, a bunch of us did. And then I took finals, and then Tom and Charlie hired me, and February 10, 54, I went to work for them, and March 27, 54, I got admitted.
It was McCarthy and Chandler?
McCarty and Chandler. I got paid $200 a month when I started, and I got $250 when I got admitted, and I wasn't worth either one of them.
So it was just you three?
Yeah. Just the three. And that didn't last very long, because McCarty had his problems, and then it became Chandler and Payne.
And then tell us generally about the firm over the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, okay, I'll get it all wrong. I don't remember, quite honestly, whether Richmond came first or Tuller came first.
That's Robert S. Tuller and James
Robert S.
Richmond?
Yeah,
Both of
Tuller
them?
was a Superior Court judge. And when McCarty left, we needed somebody quite desperately. And Tuller hated the divorce end of being a judge, and he wanted out. He wanted to try cases. So he resigned in 59. And this is where I'm breaking down, John. I think he came, and the next year Richmond came. And then the next person was Red Air and Bill Augustine and you and Tarver, and for a while we only hired people named Smith, as you may remember.
That's Tom Chandler, and what was it? Was it primarily an insurance defense firm?
Probably 80% of what we did, 85% was defense work. And you haven't asked, but the first two cases I tried with Tom, and both of them took the better part of 3.5 weeks, which was unheard of back then. And both of them we were the plaintiff.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you win?
We did. The first one, I was just the bag man. The second one, he let me do some witnesses, and the second one, he denies this, and I've always said it's true, but we were walking up the street Dick Evans was defending the case, and Evans was with the Bilby firm, and he did all the railroad work, and he probably waived final argument as a defendant 85% of the time.
Really?
Yeah. And we're walking up the street to go argue the case, and Tom denies this, but I think it's true. Tom says to me, I'll go settle the instructions, you make the opening argument. And I said, okay. And we went about half a block, and he said, by the by, I got a lot I want to say, and you better get Evans up if you want to have a job. Now, he says I never said such thing, but that's what I heard.
I suspect he did say it, sounds like him.
And I made the argument, and it was the old days, you know, the plaintiff's here and the defendant's at the back, and I remember sitting down thinking to myself, get up, you son of a bitch. And he got up, so.
You, a lot of people talk nowadays, Burr, and correctly, I think, about with regard to the college, about how there's just not a lot of trial lawyers.
Right.
How many cases do you suppose you tried the first 10 years that you were in the firm?
Oh,
Could you estimate it?
yeah. I'm gonna try to be on the low side. I used to average 20 to 25 trials a year. So the first 10 years, yeah, 100, let's say. I mean, you didn't do it often, but you didn't do a lot of discovery, and most of them were 2-3 day trials. They weren't these circuses. And a lot of them, you start on Tuesday, got done on Wednesday, start another one on Thursday, and you take a recess that morning, take the verdict in the first case. And most of them, I'd say 80% of them, you depose the plaintiff at the morning recess, the first day of trial.
Tom, I guess, was well, I shouldn't say that. I know Tom Chandler was obviously the first guy from your firm
Yeah.
to be inducted into the college. Bob Tuller, Robert Tuller?
From our firm?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Tom, Tuller, then me, I think.
And what,
Then red hair and then you. That's the way I remember it.
yeah, when was what year were you inducted? Do you remember?
79. I looked it up before you came in. I thought that's gonna be a question you're gonna ask me.
I suppose it's not our job, nor do we intend to criticize the situation that we're now faced with, because it's not the making of anybody.
No.
But
It is.
how would you describe the college as compared to now when you became a member in '79?
Well, okay, I knew you guys were coming, and I kind of thought it out and wrote out some names. And I think when I started, it was all insurance defense lawyers.
Really?
I wrote them, except Bob Miller, who was the only plaintiff's lawyer. And it seemed to me, when I thought about it, looking back, that's the way the college started, was based on insurance defense work. You know, they would never look at a prosecutor or a criminal lawyer. They just didn't. And, I mean, it was Briney, Leisure, Kimball, Leonard Everett, you remember him?
Sure. Warnock.
Warnock, yeah, and Bob Miller, and Tuller, and Chandler, and Ralph Bilby. That's the way there's probably somebody in there I'm forgetting, but that's the way
That's the way you remember the college when you
Yeah.
came in, though.
And the Phoenix people were the same way. You know, it was Mark Wilmer and Elias Romley, and then you had Cal Udall and Phil Von Allen and Ken Shirk, and I don't know who all. But for instance, the guy who did the Miranda case, John Flynn.
Yeah.
I don't think he was ever a member of the college, but I don't know.
And he was an outstanding lawyer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they had some great lawyers up there. And from the other counties, there was Carl Mangum from Flagstaff, who happens to be my uncle, but that's another story. Phil Tosi from Prescott. and Dan Stoops from Flagstaff, and nobody from the rest of the state. I think there was only those three that weren't from Pima and Maricopa County.
Well, when you practice law for the years that I did as partners with you and Tom, you hear a lot of great stories about the college.
Yeah.
I must say, since I wasn't around, I don't know if it's true or not, but it seemed like it was, from the stories I hear, it was more collegial, spent more time together, more fun.
It was. I think, and I've said this, when we handled a case, Beck and I, let's say, and we fought tooth and nail and we screamed and hollered and called each other an old good son of a bitch and whatever in the courtroom, when it was done, win or lose, we shook hands, went ahead and drank. Now, they get through, and whoever lost says, I'm gonna get even with you, you no good so-and-so, because you did whatever, and walk out the door. I mean,
But that's across
Yeah.
the board of all the trial lawyers now.
Exactly.
Or most of them.
most of them. I think I think Phoenix is 10 times worse than we are, but there's still some of that down here, don't you think, Mick?
Oh, yeah, I think it is, especially gets ingrained when people are constant foes because they're on the different side of, say, medical malpractice. The same
Yeah.
plaintiff's lawyers are against the same defense lawyers, and instead of getting a tie that grows tighter,
Yeah.
they get increasingly antagonistic, and I have observed that a lot, and it's disturbing.
And I think the Phoenix, and it's slow but sure again this way, the way of overkilling a case with discovery has led to a lot of the abuses in the practice and the animosity between the lawyers. You didn't produce this, you didn't tell me this person's gonna testify to that. Well, the old days, you know, it was part of the fun of trying a case. They'd call Mary Jones and you'd look, she's not on the police report. You wonder if she's a doctor, a nurse, a friend, who the hell is she? So when she's walking up to get sworn in, you're thinking, okay, what am I gonna ask this woman? That's how
And it
true
is kind of fun.
Yeah, well, it is.
I was trying a case one time I'd taken over from somebody and they announced the next witness. I'm like, who is this person? Were they deposed? They go, yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have the deposition. I said, no, I have no idea who they are, what they.
I mean, I've always said one of the hardest things to do in a trial is get up and say, I have no questions. And we ought to do it more often than we do because they don't hurt you. Don't give them a chance to hurt you, but none of us can do it.
Who are the lawyers over the years who you admired most?
Tom Chandler. Tom's the best lawyer I ever knew, by far. Tom, I think John confirmed this with one of the case they tried in Phoenix. Tom instinctively knew how to handle a witness, whether to get mad at him, whether to butter him up, how to handle him, whether to be aggressive, be relaxed, and how the hell he knew it, I never did know. I mean, the case I'm talking about, the third case I tried with Tom, I'm making notes, and he didn't have to, but he'd always say to me when he got done, any more questions? And I said A, B, C. And he said, this witness is loaded for bail. We're not asking those questions. And he was right. I mean, and Tom, other than trying cases, could do anything else a lawyer had to do. I mean, there's no question about it. One of the stories I've always told John, but Tom got appointed to defend this guy from Oklahoma, which is where Tom started, in a murder case. And he called a cab, went in, got out of the cab, said to the driver, wait just a second, this won't take long, rang the doorbell. His ex-wife opened the door and he shot her 5 times. I walked back to the cab and said, well, oh yeah, I've changed my mind. And so they're bored iron, the jury, the mother comes out. And it's the old days, and anybody who is against the death penalty, they're excusing. And the mom says to Tom, I don't mean to tell you how to practice law, but don't you think we ought to keep some of those people?
Outside, Tom, I think, I read everything you say, of course, but who are the other people that you had respect for and admired their abilities. So judges are lawyers in your.
Well,
Yeah, I'd like to hear about judges too, because
Okay.
you've seen, Lord knows a lot of them.
yeah, when I started, there was Mercer Johnson, Lee Garrett, and Tuller. That was the three Superior Court judges. And
Three very handsome men.
yeah, every one of them looked like walking death. I mean, none of them did you think they were going to live the next day of trial. And Judge Walsh was the federal judge. Okay. The best judge I ever dealt with, trial judge, was Jim Walsh. I mean, he was amazing, just absolutely amazing. I had a case with him, and I won't bore you with the facts. And his reputation was he always knew the law. And this is a weird case. And I said to him the first morning of trial, deliberately, I said, Judge, as you know, there's only 3 cases in the United States that's even close to this factual. He said, no, there's 4. You don't read the Florida advance sheets. One of them came out 2 days ago. I went, but he ran a courtroom, you know, he was fair, he was honest. This case, Chuck Ayers and a guy named Keith Benton were the plaintiff's lawyers. And Walsh let in some evidence, and my whole final argument is built around the fact that the day after the event, this little town, Bowie, had a coroner's inquest and found Bowie wasn't at fault. It was my client. And later in the day, he said, you know, I don't think I should let that in. And I said something like, you know, Judge, it's admissible under this statute. So my whole final argument's designed around that. And I heard this voice, Mr. Udall, Mr. Udall. I'm looking around, finally I look up, it's him. And he says, ladies and gentlemen, you're the ones who decide the facts. I'm not. But if I was you, I'd completely ignore that evidence and I'd decided on what else you've heard in the courtroom, you may proceed. Oh boy. Mercer Johnson was a good trial lawyer, judge. Yeah, and he ran the courtroom.
Did he go into the Supreme Court or
He
something?
went to the Supreme Court and then he came back and practiced law. There was a guy in Florence named Bill Truman who was as good a trial judge you ever dealt with. But if you ever had any, like you had a promissory note, you owed it, and you moved for summary judgment, he took it under advisement, he never ruled. You won. Literally. And he was a big guy. You know, it's small enough. You knew the judge, the judge's wife's name, the dog's name, what the hell they drank, what they ate, everything. But not true anymore. Dick Greer from St. John's, I tried a couple of cases with him. He was a good trial judge. You know, if I have a claim to fame, it's I've tried a case in every county in this state. And I was never overly impressed with any of the judges in Maricopa County. That doesn't mean they weren't good ones, but I just was never up there that much.
Yeah, I finally got to appear in Clifton, Morenci.
Did you?
I
Yeah.
had that on the list, Greenlee, but
I tried a case over a long time ago. And I think that the clerk told me it's the first case they tried in 5 years. It's a civil case. And they had donuts and coffee for everybody in the morning. They had a buffet at noon.
Was this Greenlee?
Yeah. And Porter Murray was the judge over there. He had one arm. He lost an arm in the mining accident. And he was a good trial judge. I mean,
Outside of Jim Walsh, who did you feel like was, over the period of your practice, were the best trial lawyers other than the ones? I mean, let's talk about within the last 20 years.
best trial judges or lawyers?
Well, both.
Okay. Well, I go back to Tom Sell. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
Tom was trying cases. And I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. But I'm gonna, I'm sure. I never thought Bill Kimball was a good trial lawyer, in all honesty. Leonard Everett, despite a lot of his faults, was a damn good trial lawyer. He knew how to try cases. Dick Briney knew how to try cases. I tried a case once with Mark Wilmer. He came down here and wanted Chandler to help him, and he said, no, And so I got the pleasure of sitting next to him for 5 days, and he could try cases. Who else? You were one of the better trial lawyers, John. I've always said that, and I mean it, and I don't say it lightly. Jim Richmond was a decent trial lawyer. He's not a great trial lawyer.
He was a better appellate judge. wasn't
Yeah,
he?
he hated trials. You know, he just did, and a lot of lawyers who tried cases hated him. The most innovative guy was Martin Rogers, by far. I mean, Martin did things that just you couldn't believe, you know. And Lee Garrett, at one point, took judicial notice that Martin Rogers was always ready to go to trial in 5 minutes notice. No.
What about the plaintiff's lawyers?
Well, I always thought Feldman was one of the best. I thought Bob Miller was very good. We had a guy named Norman Herring, who was a crook and a liar and a thief and a cheat, but he could try a lawsuit.
I hope he did.
He
No
is.
offense.
He
Not
is.
wishing it.
He is. I'll bore you with my Bob Miller story. Bob Miller loves the all-American dollar. I never met anybody like him. When I started, he and Chandler were on the outs, and they tried a case, and Tom said, go get from Miller the amount we owe him, including interest, and get a check and get a satisfaction. So I talked to him, and I said, Mr. Miller, blah, blah, blah. And I went up with the check and the satisfaction, and he said, you're a day late, you owe me 17 cents. And I said, Mr. Miller, we can do this the rest of our lives. And I was making $200 a month then, I wasn't admitted yet. I took 17 cents out of my pocket, and he took it and kept it. And I talked to one of his sons, and he said that's the way we were raised. Well, maybe a year and a half later, I'm trying a case in front of him with Tuller as my judge, and it's a workman's comp case. And I'm going to win it on appeal. But Tuller would have none of that. By God, it was a plaintiff's case. Miller knew I was going to win it on appeal. And the morning of the first day, the company calls and said, offer him $3,500. And I did, and he said, I very strongly recommend it. Comes back, and he said, my client is a born-again Christian. He got down and prayed, and the Lord told him the jury's going to give him $12,500. 2 days later, the jury gave him $12,500. Now, that gets your damn attention. So I'm working on the appeal, and the company called, and I've been telling them all along, I'm going to lose this case, but I'm going to win it on appeal. They said, offer him $4,500. So I call him, and he called back the next day, almost crying. He said, I got my client in, he got down on his knees and prayed, and the Lord told him, take $2,500. So he said, can you get it $2,500 made out to me and $25 to me and the client? I said, no. But try to explain to an insurance company how the hell you offer $4,500 and settle for $2,500 is ridiculous, but that's what happened.
What is you've touched on the lack of, I don't know what the right word is, collegiality or good manners with lawyers nowadays when they do things with each other.
Decency is the word.
Decency,
Yeah.
that's the word, I suppose it's right. Let's talk about the college itself. I think everyone's concerned that's been in the college for any length of time with the shrinking pool of lawyers that fit the qualifications that are set forth in our charter.
And I don't know if it's going to continue, but the number of inductees these last few times, at the annual meetings is definitely trending down.
Is it?
Oh, is that? Yeah. But that shouldn't surprise us.
Yeah.
And people, well, this is not my view, but I hear different things from different people, and I hear one school that says, well, we need to change the criteria for membership, and another school that seems to think, or that feels that we ought to just have less members, that we were trial lawyers, and that's what, there will always be some.
I'm not sure there will be.
I'm not either.
I'm not sure we're not a dying breed. I'm really not.
Do you have any thoughts on what can be,
Well-
what college should be doing, and particularly here in Tucson?
Yeah, I got some thoughts. I always do. I think when I started, you had to have tried over 50 cases, if I remember correctly. And you had to practice 15 years, maybe? Something like that, 15 or 20, I don't remember. And I've told people around here for 10 years, good lawyers, we got some good trial lawyers. In your lifetime, if you try 15 cases, you're gonna try a lot of cases. We just don't try cases anymore. And I think it's the cost of going to trial. I don't think it's mediations or any of that. It's the cost of getting the goddamn thing ready to go. And people, they can risk to lose the damn thing. We've either got to just say in 10 years, this group ain't gonna exist anymore. Or two, we gotta lower the standards. Cause my own opinion is, and Rusing and I have talked about it a couple times, we don't get any members down here from Tucson. And the reason is, we don't try that many cases. And I'm not sure they try that many cases in Maricopa County, but apparently they think they do.
I don't think they do. I mean, per capita, per person who checked the box trial lawyer
Yeah.
out there, I don't think so.
I
But
mean, if you get somebody who tries 5 cases a year, you've got a trial lawyer, unless they're in the criminal world. I mean,
I'd say it's more like 2 a year, 1 a
Yeah,
year. I
yeah,
mean, it's-
no, I'm sure it is. The only person to the contrary is Lori Peters in our office, and she's a cheap bitch and won't pay the money, and she tries 7 or 8 a year. And I always tell her, that's the reason, you're too goddamn cheap, you won't pay what the case is worth. And I'm not saying anything that I haven't said to her.
I know that.
But personally, I think they're gonna, if they want the group to say a lot, and I hope they do, they've got to say, you don't have to try more than 10 cases. Otherwise, they're not gonna get anybody unless they turn it into a college of criminal prosecuting and defense lawyers. When my daughter originally got out of doing what she did and started to practice, I said, you can come here, and she said, no, I can't win here, and she was right. And I said, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to learn to see if I want to try cases. And I said, well, you've either got to go with the public defender or the county attorney. And she went to the public defender, and now she and Cooper are out together. And I asked her a couple of years ago, how many cases have you tried? And she said, counting city court. And I said, no, felony cases. She said, over 100. And, she's certified to do death penalty cases and all that good stuff. But other than Lori, I mean, Tony Langdon's a good trial lawyer, and I think the last case he tried was 3 years ago.
They're not available for them.
They're not. Yeah.
Do you think a factor too, I wonder about this often, is that as it's coming up for trial, if the person on one or both sides of the case haven't tried a lot of jury trials, the fear factor kicks in, and I mean, you sometimes as it gets closer and closer, you can almost smell it.
Yeah. I agree, and I was talking to Dave Sethi 2 weeks ago or something, and we were talking about this, and he said the Price Club lawyers. He said, I get a lot of stuff 10 days before trial. They get scared, they don't want to try them, and I go over and try them. And I agree with you, Nick. I think there's a lot of times they don't do their client fairness. I'll tell you another one of my old stories. My brother Morris, Tony Terry, who's dead, had a crossing case against Dick Evans, and he hired Morris to try it. And they got all the way through, and Tony said, I want to make the opening argument. Morris said, no, Evans will waive. And he says, my case, I'm going to make it. And he got up and said, basically, this is my first trial. I really enjoyed it. When I sit down, Mr. Evans will tell you the railroad's position, Mr. Udall then tell you our position, sat down, Evans got up and waved.
Sure.
And Tuller was the judge, and Morris got up and Tuller said, no, the arguments are over. And Morris said, when he said I waived final argument, he argued. I'm entitled to answer that. And Tuller said, what did you want him to do? Write me a note? And he moved to reopen and whatever, and the jury went out and gave him $12,500. And Morris stormed up and down saying, I can get $35,000. So he moved for a new trial. Evans moved for a new trial. Morris stipulated to it, and Evans tried to withdraw it, and Tuller wouldn't let him. He said, you asked for a new trial, you're going to get one. So they tried it all over. Morris did everything, and they got $7,500. Now, how do you explain that to your client?
What is how do we solve the problem of the no trials?
I don't know. Nick, I've thought about it. I mean, people keep talking, let's go to summary jury trials instead of arbitrations. But they want to be able to appeal the summary judgment trial. That makes no sense to me.
Right.
I mean, summary trials, I've done 3, I think, maybe 4, and they're kind of fun, but it is a trial. It's not like an arbitration. You have to do certain things. And I don't have the answer to it.
I mean, every group I'm in has, whether it's the ABA, BOTA, the college, have all had commissions studying the vanishing jury trial, and I've yet to see one come up with, a real workable, tangible, something you could adopt and put into place and make them not vanish. I mean,
The only way I can see it would ever work is to limit the amount of money you can spend in discovery, and you're not going to be able to make that work. I mean, when I first started, you and I were $1,500 apart. We went across the street in a day and a half, a jury told us which one was right. And every now and then you'd get a strange result and think, Jesus, I made a bad mistake. But that doesn't happen anymore.
Do you think that the mandatory arbitration fee limits are too high?
Yeah, a little bit. I'd like to see them closer to 25, John.
I'd like to see them less than that, but I'm not.
Yeah.
No. Because I was just thinking that when I first came to our firm, your firm, Tom's firm, I tried 2-day jury trials where we'd be $800.
Yeah.
And
they were fun.
they were fun, and it was different ballgame. Well, everything changes.
Yeah.
But this institution is such a, it's the only institution that a lot of us ever cared to belong to, the only
Right.
club.
It's the only one I ever aspired to, and I never thought I'd get elected to it, but
And here we are talking to someone with your experience and intelligence, and you don't have an answer either. This
No,
is not what we want. We want to hear an answer.
I don't blame you for
well,
that.
the first jury trial I tried, 1980, was representing Allstate. We offered $1,800. We stipulated liability, offered $1,800. They wanted $3,500. It was Jack Mesh, and we went and tried it, and we stipulated everything in. And we picked a jury, tried the case, and it had a verdict by 5 o'clock that day. And it was perfect first trial for a kid.
Sure. Yeah.
You couldn't, and the jury came in at like $2,500. It was crazy.
Yeah.
What accomplishment are you most proud of as an attorney?
I don't know. I've never thought about that much.
I'd nominate you for teaching a whole bunch of young people
Yeah,
how to practice the law.
I was gonna say, John, if there's one thing that I think I've done well, is I've always had the door open and the phone open, and still I get 6 or 8 phone calls a week from lawyers saying, can I take 10 minutes of your time? And I always say, yeah. And, I feel like I've had something to do with the culture of Pima County, and you gotta be honest, and you gotta be fair, and you don't try to hide the ball. But other than that, I don't know as I've done much.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right there. If Tom Chandler is considered the preeminent lawyer of the last, 50 years, you embody integrity in this bar down here, and just indisputably. I mean, you are the pinnacle of that, and
Yeah.
everyone admires you for it, and
I appreciate that, but
We were just talking about it a couple days ago about picking you as an arbitrator in case, even though you would know one of the parties, we thought the other side still might agree to it because it won't matter to him.
well, I've done mediations where one of my partners is one of the lawyers, and the other side says, you'll be fair, and, I think I am fair, I guess is the way I'd put it.
Would you encourage young people to choose the law as a profession now? You probably have talked to some young people who've asked you the question, should
Yeah.
I go to law school?
I would, yeah. I think it's great from the standpoint, every day there's something new comes in to get your attention and makes you think. The law school training, I'm sure you guys did, we had probably 8 to 10 people in our class who had no intention of practicing law. They just wanted the background of how to think and all. And yeah, I think it's a great profession.
Would you give any words of advice to someone who was going to pursue the legal career nowadays?
Well, I would, I'd tell anybody that talks to me, if you can't get a job, go to Sierra Vista or Yuma. Those two places are so under-lawyered, it's ridiculous. You could put 60 lawyers in Yuma, nobody'd even know they were there, and they'd all make $200,000 a year. I mean, they just desperately need lawyers over there.
That was always my assessment too, and when they first came out with the first economics of law practice deal that the state bar did, this survey, the per average income of lawyers was highest in Yuma. And I thought, well, there
There's
you
no
go.
lawyer there.
Yeah, Yuma's Yuma, that's something.
With regard to the practice of law and young people when they're going into it, when they become lawyers, would you comment on when I joined the law firm in 1979, I believe it was, I think it was you, or it may have been Tom, or it may have been both of you, that told me that a lawyer was a professional that had to have the best interest of the public at heart, and he was entitled to make enough money to take care of his family and live a decent life. But if you're going into the law to get rich, you shouldn't do
You're
it.
in the wrong business.
Well, you might can make it, but you're not going to be a really
Yeah.
good lawyer.
No, you're not gonna be.
Uh,
And probably.
Has that changed in your opinion in your career? Or is it about the same that some people
I
are
think it
good?
is. I think it is, John. There's Dick Grans that, he made a ton of money, but most of us ain't gonna get rich doing this. And there's still a lot of satisfaction, I think, in lawyers who do the right thing, and a lot of pro bono stuff that nobody gets credit. God knows Tom Chandler did more pro bono stuff and nobody ever heard of, But that was Tom. That is Tom. I've done more. I mean, I don't want to talk about it, but the satisfaction you get on seeing a good result is kind of like having sex in a lot of ways. I mean, it just is. That's a poor way to put it, but I mean.
Good way to put it.
No, I think there's a lot of satisfaction in practicing law, and certainly I'm not a good business lawyer. And, if you said to me, what's the thing I hate the most about lawyer now compared to when I started? Advertising. How the hell the Supreme Court ever let us go to advertising beyond me? It's just, you watch, these ads nationwide, if you've had this, call somebody in Houston, Texas or whatever, and you want to throw up.
Well, represented a guy recently who had mesothelioma, and I did some research on a firm that actually knew what they were doing and would actually try cases.
Oh.
And I was lucky because it's hard to figure out, and I
Sure.
found this firm. And once I talked to someone, he goes, "Okay, well, I'll be out there tomorrow." And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, yeah." And I said, because the client's going to be dead in 12 to 18 months,
Yeah,
basically.
sure.
And I said, "Yeah, so we need to get this thing rolling." He goes, "Well, that's part of it. The other part is between now and tomorrow, he might watch 20 different ads for mesothelioma attorneys on Fox News."
Yeah.
And most of them are schlocky, and we need to sign them up.
Right.
And he's in good hands. And these guys, bless their hearts, I mean, they were unbelievably professional, they were attentive, and we were in trial in Oakland within 12 months.
Really?
And then we had it settled along the way. There's a lot of defendants, but they were halfway through the trial when it finally settled.
Huh.
But,
Well,
that's-
impressive.
I hear comments from, I guess I'm an older guy now.
Yes, you are.
But from guys even older than me, about the change in the practice of law in terms of everything. The bottom line is money now, and it wasn't in the old days. But and I don't know if that's true or not.
I don't think I agree with that, John. I think there's always been lawyers out there that's the bottom line, you know. But overall, based on, and you know, God help us, I'm not as close to it as I was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. But the people I deal with still want to do good. I mean, they want to make enough money to put food on the table and hopefully retire at some stage. I'm not going to retire. What the hell would I do? My wife would kill me, and with good reason. But no, I don't think that's true. I don't like it when the big firms say you got to have X number of billable hours. You ever heard that in this
Never.
firm? Never. I mean, what you're expected to do, what I was taught to do by Tom, basically, and by everybody else. I mean, when I started, learning wasn't just your partners. Every lawyer in town sat down and talked to you. You know, if they thought you were doing something wrong, they'd say, "Hey, let's go have a cup of coffee," and they'd say, "You don't do this in this town." So
There's so many of us now.
yeah, there is.
Nobody can-
I mean, we used to, you know, again, I don't know how many there were when I started, but almost 80% of the lawyers had coffee at the old Pioneer Hotel at 8 o'clock in the morning, 6 days a week. I mean, you know, the courthouse used to be open till noon on Saturday. We tried cases Saturday. The second case I tried with Tom, the first case I tried with Tom, we were in front of Mercer Johnson, and he was getting divorced, and we would go 5 days a week. We'd break from 5 to 6:30 for supper and quit at 11:30 at night. And 3 Saturdays, we went from 9 to 9. It was long days, and it was long days for the jury. I mean, it wasn't just for everybody.
What are your most interesting, memorable, significant, half dozen cases that you've had over the years, if you were to sit down and...
Probably, I've always said to my client that that's the most important case. The most interesting case, but the only, I tell stories about 2 of them in Nogales, but I tried a case. Richard Royalson was the trial judge. It was a polio case. And Jack Ettinger had the plaintiff. I had a drug company. Dick Briney had a drug company, and Leonard Everett had the doctor at the U of A. And it happened at the old El Rio Clinic, and they were switching drugs. And they couldn't tell you what they gave, the Letterly drug or this drug. They just knew they gave drugs. So we went to trial, and Richard, I mean, you ask, now you get bored. We had this, Briney had this guy from New York City named Bernstein. And it's about 4:30, and Robert comes in and sits behind him. and Richard says, Mr. Bernstein said, Mr. Briney, we've known him and his first wife for a long time. We have dinner with Mr. Udall and his wife at least twice a week. Mr. Everett was the best man when we both got married. We've known him very well. And I'm about to make some rulings, and you'll find out we're not very good friends. And he said, before I do that, turn around and look at my clone.
This is Robert Richard Rawls.
Yeah. And this guy had to go back, call New York and say, let me tell you what the hell's going on. They're still fighting the Indians out there. Anyway, yeah, what Richard did was he said, I'm just going to switch the burden of proof. The plaintiff didn't have to prove what drug it was, you got to prove it wasn't your drug. And Salk, who developed the first vaccine, and then Sabin came. Ettinger got Salk to come and testify.
Jonas Salk.
Jonas
I
Salk.
remember reading about that when he was in, there was an article in the paper.
They
about it. He'd come to town.
turned the town out. I mean, you know, and the part I've never forgotten is, I don't remember who it was. I think it was Ettinger. But the fourth question, he said, Dr. Salk, what year did you get the Nobel Prize? He said, neither I nor Sabin ever got it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. But that's the worst case I ever tried. Mick, I tried in Nogales in front of Judge Farley, who was something. You gotta be 30 to be a judge. He got elected and had his 30th birthday between the election and January 1. 70, they made him retire.
He used to come down those circular stairs carrying his books, and he looked like a prophet from heaven.
Right. And I had a case happen across the line. Little kid ran out and hit the back tire and got killed. And my guy lived in Rio Rico. He's a retired, worked for the state for the game and fish. Anyway, we went down. He said, we're just going to move the accident to Arizona. We're not going to tell them it happened in Sonora. And we're going to apply Arizona law. So I tried it and won it. And I should have. I mean, I'm not. He gave a new trial on the grounds contrary to the way of the evidence. I tried it and won it. He gave a new trial on the grounds that's contrary to the way of the evidence. I tried it and won it. I'm trying to explain to my client how we're going, and the plaintiffs are filing their motion. And I went down there and I said, rule something or other, whatever it is, says you can only do that twice. And he said to the bailiff, Albert, go get those books. And he looks and he said, let the record show that Mr. Udall is correct, that rule, whatever it is, says I can only grant it twice. Let the record show that rule does not apply in Santa Cruz County, the motion is granted. So I go out and the plaintiff's lawyer says, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to appeal. I've tried this case too damn many times. But that's one of them I've never forgotten, those cases.
I heard a story about you that may have grown into telling and retelling, but something about a case that I think you had down in Nogales where everyone started speaking Spanish.
That was me,
Yeah.
and Farley was the judge.
You were the lawyer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So was I.
Oh, you too?
I tried a case down there. I always said, for a long time, I made the best jury argument I ever heard. And then Tenney tried that case in Bisbee, and he made his argument. But I tried a case down there against Nasib Karam. And it was a slip and fall case. Only one witness spoke English, and the only reason they had an interpreter was for me. And the interpreter would give an answer, Nasib would say no, the judge would say no, and they'd argue. Well, the jury heard the goddamn thing. I didn't. And it was kind of strange because Farley had just taken up golf. And at noon, he declared there was important matters, and he and Nasib and I would go out and play 27 holes of golf, play the slot machines, have a few drinks, and start again. So we took a 2-day trial and turned it into a 4-day trial. When we're arguing Friday morning, I got up and I said, it's the time that you get to hear the evidence and any reasonable inference in the evidence. You heard it and I didn't, and I think this lady should have been looking where she was walking and sat down.
Well, I gotta tell you, I'll just add one thing.
Okay.
That you or somebody from our firm sent me down there to try a case, and I was representing an insurance company, representing the defendant who had owned a roping arena and invited a bunch of people came to the roping and got drunk, and there was a knife fight and somebody got cut up. And it was the same thing. Everybody on the jury, of course, spoke Spanish.
Yeah.
All of the parties were Spanish. All of the witnesses were Spanish. Everybody in the courtroom was Mexican except myself. And there was a key witness that I knew what he was going to say because I'd got the translator, and I knew what he was going to say. And it was going to be harmful to us. And it turned into the thing you're talking about. Everybody was talking, and this guy was answering in long, and the translator was behind, and I was worried. And I said, Your Honor, can I approach the bench? And he said, sure. So I went up there and I said, I don't understand a word he's saying. I can't hear the translation. He said, just sit down and don't ask anything. He said, you're doing real good right now.
Now, Farley, he's still, I mean, you've heard it 100 times, but he's the one I know heard it. Bob Barber, the older, not his dad, who was a character. Anyway, I'm in the courtroom, and Farley's hearing motions, and he says to Barber, he said, Mr. Barber, you're getting awful close to being in contempt of this court. And he pulled out his wallet and he said, Your Honor, I got $70 in my purse. Let me know when I've used it up. And Farley said, look in your purse and see if you got 10 days in jail. The Royalstons, back to judges, they were very, very, very good friends of mine. But I thought they were good trial judges. I thought they knew how to try a case. They ran a courtroom, and
They were good jury trial judges.
Yeah, they were.
They were not overly inclined to read a lot of cases.
No,
But
but
they were good judges.
I mean, Teller, God bless him, I love Teller. As a trial judge, he's one of the worst you ever saw because he wanted to try the case. And if, I'm there, if the plaintiff forgot to prove the medical bills or future medical bills, Teller would prove them. He'd say, before you leave, doctor, let me ask a couple of questions. You go, you son of a bitch. That's not your job. And Teller, when I started, I got more of this story, but everybody were pen writers, the court reporters, that's for the machines. And they had about 30 pens in case one ran out of ink. Teller's court reporter was a lawyer. And if Teller ruled and he disagreed, he'd throw his pen up in the air. And, by the time he took the recess, there'd be 10 or 12 pens on the floor. And I said to Teller, I didn't know him that well, I said, why don't you fire that guy? He said, I think he's right more often than I am.
Well, if you could look back on your career, is there anything you would change? Directions you'd take?
No, not really. Mick, I don't think any lawyer, including the two of you, hadn't at some stage in your life thought, I want to be a judge. That's crossed my mind a couple of times. I'm not sure I've been good at it. And when I look at it, am I happy I stayed where I am? Yeah. I don't think I could have started in any better circumstance than starting with Tom Chandler. I mean, he knew how to practice law. I'm not a good teacher. I've never have been a good teacher. Tom is. Tom knew how to tell you how to try a case, and he knew, and I think if I've ever done anything, Tom knew how to delegate it. Start you with the little stuff and let you learn and get into the big stuff. And if I tried to do anything with new people in our law firm, I tried to get them involved, knowing the clients and getting them involved trying cases. And I think John would agree with that.
I do agree.
Do I wish I'd have been a bankruptcy lawyer? Hell no. I think trying cases is hard work. It is debilitating. I mean, you're on your toes, you don't want to do the wrong thing. And the whole secret is preparation. It's not what you do in the courtroom. If you're not ready, you're not ready. And years ago, they tried a case in Phoenix with Mark Wilmer. I never have known the lawyer, and the judge said, "Is the plaintiff's ready?" And the plaintiff's lawyer got up and said, "The plaintiff is ready." He said, "The defense ready?" And he stood up and fainted.
Well, Burr, is there anything that you'd just like to, there's going to be members of the college, or you got more, right?
No.
There's going to be members of the college that are, I'm sure that will see this. And anything you'd like to say?
Well, I don't know if there's anything I want to say, John. I think the American college has become a real force in legal politics. And it's because of you guys and the other members of the college and the people that started it, and people have learned to trust them. And the answer, is there something I would like to do? Yeah, I'd like to find out how we get more cases tried, but I don't know how to do that. Because I think, if you're going to keep the caliber of the people in the college that exist now, and have existed since I belonged to it, all of them were competent, strong trial lawyers. And you're not seeing that anymore. I mean,
Not enough horses.
yeah, I mean, just for a second, look in Tucson plaintiff's lawyers, it's hard to find anybody who's as good as Ron Mercaldo. I mean, there isn't. And years ago, we had 4 or 5 guys that were just like him. I mean, you could go hire a kid. That's not true anymore. And I don't like it. I don't know how to solve it.
Well,
We're almost sort of gonna, before we go extinct, we're gonna evolve almost to the English system where there's gonna be the handful of guys who are good trial lawyers. Other people will get the cases, work them up, build the crap out of their clients, if it's a defense
Yeah.
case, and then they'll say, I think we need a specialist in here to do that. And
Yeah.
they'll go get the guy who's gonna,
Well,
there's a lot of guys that are kind of, it's almost, there's a lot of that going on now, a lot more than
we think.
and a lot more than it was 10, 15 years ago, too.
Yeah, no, I think Feldman, Bob Miller, Morris, Norman Herring, most of their cases were referrals. And I was talking to Ted Schmidt, and, I think 70% of their cases are referrals now. And the guys who get them, who aren't trial lawyers, I give them credit for being smart enough to know this is over my head. I got to get somebody who knows how to do it. And they get a big finder's fee.
Yeah, I think when the bar ultimately legitimized referral fees,
Yeah.
it changed things, and it probably helped the client. They're paying the same fee, but
Right.
the guy isn't compelled to hang on to it longer than he should or forever and screw it
And,
up.
and a lot of, no offense, man, but a lot of decent, and I use that advisedly, plaintiffs' lawyers don't have the money to finance a big case. So they gotta go to somebody who can do it. The court appointed me in one, kids are involved, and the lawyers advanced over $240,000 in that case, and experts and stuff. And that's a lot of money, of your own money, to have hanging out there that you may never get back, because it's a case they could have lost.
Well, I think that now I have heard certain lawyers that are good malpractice lawyers that with a serious injury case, and it didn't have to be too serious, or a doctor's malpractice, it's just not economically feasible to even take the case unless you're nearly assured of getting a $600,000 or more judgment.
Yeah.
Or it's all gone by the
Yeah.
time the client doesn't get much, you don't get much.
Yeah, I think that,
So expanding costs of litigation are just, they're
It's
they're
what-
everywhere.
It's what's killing trials, I think.
yeah, I think that, the tough med mal case, you're talking 50 to 100 grand out of pocket costs for a plaintiff.
Or more.
Or more.
Yeah.
Much more if it's, for example, sued against the drug company and the doctor,
Yeah.
you're talking about $400,000. They'll have experts that come from Mars.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, you're paying 25, 50 grand per expert.
Right, yeah. No, I hear that to do a medical mal case in this day and age, if it's not worth over $500,000, they're not gonna take it.
Which it
Because-
deprives, of course, it deprives the client of getting.
Exactly, and they're not saying you don't have a good case, they're just saying, when we get done, we're gonna pay the experts 200,000, me 200,000, you're gonna get 50.
Yeah.
I mean, so it doesn't make any good sense to.
Well, Burr, thank you for
Oh,
visiting with us.
thanks for coming.
The next victim of this is going to be Michael Lachanina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so tell us a little about Michael Lachanina.
Jesus. Well, Mike's a big loudmouth lawyer, as you well know. I'll tell you 3 or 4 stories. How the hell Bill B ever hired Mike is beyond me. I mean, they were so staid and, and all of a sudden you get this crazy man in there. And Mike could try a case, don't misunderstand me. When he went on the Court of Appeals, he always said, this is the easiest job in the world. If you can't get it done by 11:30 in the morning, you don't understand the fucking job. And Mike, there's a lady, you probably remember, named M.J. Carmel, who's the claims boss for farmers. And Phil Grant, I was involved in the real case, Phil's doing the Crawbridge case. And Mike wrote an opinion saying, M.J. Carmel did this, he did that. I called him. Because I'm not involved in the case, I can do it. And I said, Mike, it's a woman, not a man. You can change he to she. And he said, I'm not, for your information, it takes 92 days from the time the draft comes out till it shows up in a book. Tell her to have a sex change operation in 92 days. I'm not changing anything. And still, my favorite Mike Lachanina story is he's out there between the 2 buildings. He's got on Levi's, tennis shoes, a golf shirt, tattoos on both arms, smoking.
You mean over at the Court of Appeals?
Yeah.
When he was on the
And here comes 3 guys from Snell and Wilmer in their 3-piece suits. And the head duck stops and says, do you know where the Court of Appeals is? He said, I think it's in that building. There's a directory. I think it's on the 3rd floor. There's a directory. You gotta look. And they turn and walk away, and in that loud voice, Mike says, are you a lawyer? The guy turned around and said, yeah. And he said, it must make your client feel awful good when you don't know where the courtroom is. And he says, fuck you, you smart ass son of a bitch, and turns around. 10 minutes later, first guy out, it's Mike. And they thought he was the fucking janitor. And the other case, they used to have a guy, what that was his name, a neurosurgeon. I mean somebody. Vargas, I'm gonna say. Anyway, Mike had this guy come in to see him, and he wanted to switch doctors. And if it's the workman's comp case, you get to pick your doctor, but you can't switch without their approval. And Mike says, why? And he said, well, I don't trust the doctor, he's gonna do some more surgery. Well, here's what happened. He's doing surgery, and he drops the scalpel and cuts the aorta. And he doesn't know what he's done. And they get a real surgeon in who cleans it up, and the record says, the real surgeon said to him, what happened? He dropped the knife and cut him again. So this guy wanted a new doctor.
I remember when I first started with Bill B, he was there, and remember he'd have these little receptions at the State Bar. It was
Yeah.
down at what was then, I think, still the Braniff, the
Yeah.
hotel downtown, and the bar was down at the convention center last time it was held there. And so Mike, he always would stock with the cheapest whiskey and stuff. But
I'm in there and some public defenders have wandered in. In fact, one of them is the guy that recently became an insurance defense lawyer, but he came in and there's a couple of these public defenders sitting on the couch, and he comes in and sees his buddy. He goes, "Hey, how's it going?" He goes, "Where's the bar?" He goes, "It's over there, but when I went over to get a drink, some guy with tattoos yelled at me and said, who are you with?" He goes, "I'm with the public defender's office." He goes, "Well, then get the fuck out of here. This is from my rich lawyer friends from Phoenix who send me cases."
I thought, what a great description walking in. Some guy with tattoos yelled at me.
No, he's something.
Well, thank you for,
And nobody enjoys it. You know, that's one other thing I was gonna say, and I meant to say.
yeah, please.
Leonard Everett came up with this one, and I wished I always had. Everett was a lone, you knew, Lynn, did you?
Yeah.
He was a lone wolf, he was with Burry and all these people. But his comment, and it's still true today, is pick up the phone, not the dictaphone. And there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah.
Well, but now it's pick up the phone, not send out the snotty fucking email.
Yeah,
You know, Everett, he said another thing that I always wished that I had said, because it was true for certain lawyers. Remember when we first started to have to keep time records for billing in the firm, and
Yeah.
how much I hated it and you hated it.
everybody.
And we were down at Rollis's having lunch or having a drink after work, and Leonard was in there, and he was sitting at the table with us. And he said, and we were going around there, "How do you like it? What do you think of it?" And he says, "I don't like you. I don't care. I don't care at all." You know, he had that strange little way of kind of talking. "I don't really care at all. I don't care that they tell me how many hours, or I have to keep the hours, as long as I can tell them." No, he said, "I don't care if they set rates per hour. Doesn't bother me a bit, as long as I can tell them how many hours they're working." That was his answer. Thank you for visiting with us.
Well, Warnock, one of my old Harold Warnock was a character. He's first case I ever had that I did from start to finish. I filed the answer, I took all the depositions, did everything. Warnock was the plaintiff. And I literally stood on the corner of the courthouse probably 2 hours. And any lawyer walked by, I'd talk to him, get there, and wrote a goddamn letter to the company about what I thought it was worth. Two things. One, it got me a phone call from the company guy saying I didn't need Gone with the Wind. You could have written this in 2 pages. And you asked whatever authority I asked for. You got it. He said, settle the case. So I called Warnock and I said, "Mr. Warnock, this is Burr Udall. I'm calling, I want to settle this case." And he said, "You're not a partner. I only talk to partners," and hung up on me.
Burr, would you, I meant to ask Tom about it when we interviewed him, but I didn't, I forgot to. Would you share with us, and whoever hears this thing, the story of when you were working for Chandler, and Chandler went to La Jolla or somewhere, and he had a case with the Honorable Malloy?
Have you ever heard this one? Probably. Well, it was, he and Malloy were on the outs, and I don't remember, it's a reported case, but anyway, Malloy would call and Tom wouldn't talk to him, and Malloy finally would call me and say, "I need 30 days to file my brief." And the first couple times I went and talked to Tom, then I just told him, send the stuff. So Chandler's on vacation in La Jolla, I think, and he called and said, "I'm gonna spend another week. What's going next week?" And I told him, and I said, "Your brief's due, and I can do the brief." And he said, "No, I tried the case. I should do the brief. Call and get me 2 weeks from Malloy. Haven't you given me a number of extensions?" I said, "Yeah." So I called Malloy, and he said, "No, my client says it's taking too long." So Tom would call the office 4 or 5 times a day when he was on vacation. I never did, still don't understand. And he called back and he said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Malloy won't give me an extension." And he said, well, haven't you given him? And I said, yeah. And the next morning, Malloy calls me and says, send the extension, I will give Chandler whatever. And so Tom comes, and then Tom called later, and I said, Malloy agreed to do it. And Tom comes back, and he said, do you want to know what happened? And I said, yeah, sure. He said, I called Malloy from La Jolla. And I said, John, we're on the outs. We've known each other since 1937 when we started school at the U of A, whatever year it was. And we're having our problems, but I have a personal problem. I need your help. And Malloy said, of course. What's your problem? He said, I just hired a new lawyer who's been working for me for 3 months and he's lying to me. What do I do? And Malloy said, you got to fire him. You can't have a lawyer working for you who's lying to you. What's he lying about? And Tom said, he says you won't give him an extension for me to file the brief. And I said, well, he's not lying to you. Now, only Chandler would be able to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
I agree. Well, I guess we're done.
Okay, thank you.
Unless you want to talk some more.
No, I
We got
know.
nothing but time and tape.
I got lots of stories I tell you, as you well know.
Shall we adjourn to a saloon?
Yeah, I tell
Motion
you
for
real quick. My two favorite stories about me was one. My mother was from the Thatchers, Graham County, and I'm trying a case over there, and I'm more down in the jury, and I said, I hate to ask this, but am I related to any of you? And two hands go up. I think, oh shit. And the first lady said, I'm your aunt. And she said, you haven't seen me since you were 7 years old, so I don't expect you to remember me. And I said, you'll be probably there. She'd be there. The next lady is, maybe 4 or 5 years younger than me. And she got on a black uniform and a black hat and a big tie. Cane, and she says, we're first cousins. We met 6 weeks ago, and you'd better remember it. I said, of course I remember, but I got to ask these questions. And then I was trying a case in St. John's, where Dad was the judge, and like a lot of the smaller counties, they get the pictures of the judges inside the courtroom. Well, it's like Clifton. They turn school out. They don't try that many cases, and they bring the high schools from Round Valley and St. John's, and probably a third of the teachers are people I went to school with. So I'm trying the case in the back of the courtroom, and I'd object, and I'd visit, hi Sally, what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. So at the recess, the plaintiff's lawyer said to Dick Greer, who we have a motion to take up, and he said, okay, what's your motion? He said, we want you to rule that Udall can't stand under his father's picture anymore. And honest to God, I didn't know I was doing it. And Greer, who was a character, Greer says, look, Bill, he said, all these people up here know Burr's Levi's kid, don't worry about it. Oh, boy. Well, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Come on, I'll buy us a drink.